Hey, we got Hal. You got Hal. We got Hal. You got Hal. We would include me. So let's just say you've got Hal here at 9:04 East Coast time on April 16. Hope you had a great weekend. Phone number here 240-283-7262. Had a very busy weekend doing a lot of work. Got a little bit of a promotion, which, I mean, it's kind of weird. It's a voluntary organization, so can you be promoted? I guess. So now I'm the new co-interim chair of Montgomery County's Our Revolution chapter. So it's kind of exciting, the chair, right? Co-interim chair. I'm kind of excited about that. Phone number if you want to join me, 240-283-7262, 240-283-7262. I'm very, very busy preparing for it's a summit, not a seminar, I guess. A summit should be, we're hoping anyway, hundreds of people in beautiful downtown Silver Spring, Maryland. Silver Spring's really nice library there. It's a really nice community. So there's going to be a conference from 9:30 till 4 on Sunday, the 22nd, and I'll be one of the presenters when it comes to the issue of publicly financed campaigns. So I'm interested in that, excited about that, very, very pleased, and pleased also to be working, in the I guess top, whatever you want to call it, the administrating the Our Revolution group, and of course we are the successors to the Bernie for President movement, which has really had tremendous success. I mean, I think, look, I've been critical. I've written about this. I don't think Bernie's done the best job endorsing candidates, but man, the progressive movement which he spawned, and it's not just Our Revolution. This includes, of course, the various members of Action Network. We have Progressive Maryland. I'm sure there's Progressive California. There's Progressive Kansas, for crying out loud. So all these different state organizations, there are Our Revolutions all over the country, are promoting new candidates for public office, helping them run, helping them raise money, gain visibility. This is having a tremendous effect. There is no question about it. We are seeing Democrats win in red areas who weren't winning because we're running progressive. We're running genuine economic populists. Now, this is not because the Democratic Party has gotten religion. Let's be really, really clear. The leadership of the Democratic Party remains staunchly neo-lib and neo-con. They're not saying anything about apprentices dropping bombs, for no clear-cut, military reason that we can come up with. Over and over, we have seen that the claims, for example, that Assad was using chemical weapons against his own people have been unproven. In fact, Mad Dog Mattis said as much as recently as February of this year that we don't have proof. We don't have it. And yet, Apprentice went ahead and bombed some chemical plant, which probably will have zero effect anyway. And you don't hear anything from Democrats. You don't hear a peep. Have you heard Democrats speak out against the targeted killing of Palestinians by Israel in Gaza a 3 weeks ago? Nothing. So don't expect your grandfathers, actually I shouldn't say grandfather, don't expect your older cousin's Democratic Party to say anything, to do anything much when it comes to Apprentice, when his neo-con foreign policies are killing people and making us less safe. Don't expect them to say anything when he decides in the end to sign off on the TPP, another job-killing trade deal. It's not the Democratic Party. It's thousands, if not millions, of activists around this country who are pushing for progressives to run in primaries. That is what's making the difference, and it's a beautiful thing. Now, will this have any long-term effect? I don't know. I think the jury's out. I'm skeptical. I'm not confident, but I don't know what else we can do but try to win elections, which, by the way, I said from day one when I joined, when I started up the old KRXA 540, because the new one is, obviously not what we did. But the old one, I said, hey, the whole point of this endeavor, this exercise, is to try to persuade people to vote for the most progressive candidate who's running in every single election. This was always about political change. And there are people out there who say, oh, you can't have political change. It won't happen. That's not going to work. And my response has been fine. Maybe it won't. What do you propose differently? What do you think we should do instead? So you had ideas like Occupy Wall Street. Let's shut things down. Let's have mass strikes. Okay, fine, try that. Let's see how that works. Really doesn't. It really doesn't. Strikers often hurt themselves more than the companies that they're targeting. Even when they get some victories, in the end, what we need is real political change. We have seen some wins, by the way, by teachers striking in West Virginia, striking in Kentucky. And that has been a beautiful thing, too. Let me tell you, in Oklahoma, has been a beautiful thing. So when people join together, when we are in solidarity with each other, fighting for poor, working, middle-class Americans, we make a difference. In the end, I truly believe we have to have political change. We have to elect progressives from top to bottom, states, counties, cities, and federal government. And that's what the progressive movement is doing. So I'm very, very happy to be a small part of that movement. I did want to talk, I'm not going to talk all about Comey. Maybe I'll mention him. That kind of stuff, all that, the gossipy stuff, I don't know where that gets us. You know what, I actually do really want to focus on something that my good friend John in Monterey posted. And maybe it's a byway of, it's not that important. It's not likely to happen. I have to say, I still found this really interesting, this story. And actually, I might get to Barbara Bush as well. I didn't post her. But so I didn't post that in the name of the show, because I try to give a title that's evocative of what we're going to discuss. And I think the first word I put in there was California. And of course, I have ties to California, living there from 05 until 14, back and forth for the last 5 years. Really have very, very warm feelings still for the Golden State. I'll be visiting next month. Looking forward to that. From the 4th through the 8th, I'll be flying into Oakland, staying a few days in Berkeley, and then driving down to Santa Cruz County for a day. So I'm really looking forward. Will not be able, just don't have the time to make it all the way down to Monterey because I've got events mostly in the Bay Area, but I do want to get down at least to Santa Cruz. I'm really looking forward to that. Should be a great little jaunt for me. And it's kind of a break because I'm taking all this time with, elections right now, working on the elections. But I did want to talk, so I said California is a big deal to me. Obviously, having lived there, feeling like that's, part of my record, part of my experiences were, inform me, right? Everything that we do, everything that we say, everything that we experience has some effects. And in terms of becoming politically active, I certainly was more active in the Golden State than anywhere else and developed a lot of, I hope, understanding and knowledge of what California was like, although you lose it because it's been I was thinking about this, it's been 4 years since I moved away, completely, permanently, cut my ties, just simply drove away from Monterey, and I do miss it. There's no question about it. John posted on Facebook a CNN article, 3 Californias. This is Dateline, April 13th, Friday the 13th, 2018, by Andrea Diaz. 3 Californias, the initiative to break up the state may be on the ballot in November. John says, don't fall for it. This is a ploy, he says, by Republicans to take at least some influence, some power away from Democrats in the state, in the Golden State, and to reduce their sway when it comes to national elections. And the point I think he's making is, and he says actually that it will, result in more some Republican senators, and he doesn't say this, but maybe this is also part of his thinking that this will reduce the electoral power of California. I actually have to beg to disagree. And the reason I say that is I'm not persuaded that 3 Californias, as cut up, as the state is now would be divided under this proposal, I'm not persuaded that those 3 Californias would all ultimately become Democratic. And if that were to happen, you'd have 6 Democratic senators rather than 2. You'd also have 4 more electoral college votes because each state's electoral college vote is based on the number of representatives in the House plus senators. So as the smallest states, Vermont, Wyoming, for example, have 3. They only have one representative because they're so small. The average representative, let me say it differently. Except in the small states, most representatives represent in the House of Representatives. Representatives represent, I believe, about a little under 1 million people, because there are 438, I believe, 438 representatives. There's about 360 million Americans, 370 million, something like that. So that would mean that each congressional representative, except for those in the small states, would have a population even less than 800,000, 900,000. And that would be, as again, Wyoming and Vermont jump to my mind. I don't know if there are any other states that have such a small population that's under 800,000 or 900,000 people, but maybe, I don't know what it would be. So those would be the 2 smallest. Maybe Delaware? I don't know. But I don't know. So you generally represent 800,000 or 900,000 people. If you had 3 Californias, you'd have the same number of representatives total, assuming the population of the combined 3 Californias, North California, South California, and New California. If you added up the 3 and that was equal to exactly what we have now, you'd have the same number of representatives. You'd have the exact same number of representatives, but you'd also have 4 more senators. So that would mean a total of 4 more electoral votes, more influence in the Electoral College. You'd also have 4 more senators, more influence in the Senate. The reason John is concerned is he fears, and I think with good reason actually, that South California, especially as I look at the makeup of these 3 states, South California might become Republican. I don't think North California or New California would. North California is the Bay Area. That includes San Francisco and San Jose, Santa Cruz, San Jose. And I believe, although it's not absolutely clear from the article, because the article isn't perfectly well written, but I believe it also includes Sacramento. Well, those 3 enormous population centers, I say 3 because San Jose, San Francisco, or you call it the Bay Area, whatever, that's 1. But I divide into 2, South Bay and San Francisco, Oakland. So there you have, plus Sacramento. That's going to totally outweigh everyone else in the region. That's Democratic. Very, very Democratic. You're going to keep those 2 senators are going to be to the left. They're going to be Democratic. And the Electoral College votes will go to the Democrats in North California. Same thing in South, or in New rather, not South. Same thing in New California. New California, Los Angeles, Monterey, Santa Barbara, San Luis Obispo. Maybe Santa Barbara, San Luis Obispo lean a little bit to the Republican side, but with LA, that's going to be the huge kingmaker, that Los Angeles area. So again, that will stay Democratic without question. So the issue then is, what about Southern California? Let's say Southern California leans right. I don't think it's going to be hard, right? San Diego is a Democratic city. Orange County, yes, Republican, but not nearly as conservative as the Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan years. Orange County went for Hillary. So what you're looking at is probably maybe 1 Republican, 1 Democratic senator. In the end, this probably would lead to a better result, more influence for Democrats. There's one other reason, I think, to consider this proposal. We've got John on the line. We'll get to him in just a second. Why I think this proposal could really be good for the people who now live in the state of California. It's so big. The state is so friggin' big. It's unwieldy in its size. And so there is some advantage, I believe, in having 3 states where each one has about 10, 12, 13 million people, rather than 14 million people, rather than 1 state that's close to 40. And I make one final point here before we get to John. I don't love the way this is broken up. I don't know why South California is mostly inland, and New California hugs the coast. You probably would be better having North, Middle, and South California, but there may be some reason for this. I'm not quite clear what it would be. In any event, I'm less concerned than John. Let's get John on. He'll tell us why I'm wrong on this. Good morning, John. How are you today?
Good morning. Doing good. So, you got me really thinking about this, but the thing about New California is with this proposal, they're slicing off Santa Cruz County. Santa Cruz County goes to North California. It looks like North California is dark blue. It looks like they're trying to gerrymander California to me. So then you've got the rest of Monterey, or you've got Monterey County with San Luis Obispo County, and on a political map right now they look blue. We both have Democratic representatives, but you're subtracting Santa Cruz now from that, and so I don't know. I'm not so sure that Monterey County isn't a toss-up after that. And the other thing is now our two House representatives probably becomes one. As soon as you subtract Santa Cruz from there and combine San Luis Obispo County and Monterey County. So that would be on a best case scenario, one Democratic representative instead of two. I don't know that whether or not North California would pick one up as a result of that. That's very possible. I definitely see Southern California as going pretty red. I just, you may be right. I'm just suspicious because the guy who proposed this is a libertarian.
Well, I mean, there's good reason to be, John, let me just jump in. There's really good reason to be suspicious. I don't disagree with any of that. And everyone has a hidden agenda, which they never present. But I looked at, I just Googled Los Angeles County, California population. So this is the most populous county in the nation with 10.17 million people. According to the CNN article, I don't know, maybe they're wrong. But according to the CNN article, Los Angeles County would be part of New California. So, 5/6 of the population of New California would be LA County. LA County is blue, dark blue. So you'd have
New California. No, New California is central. Is the Central Coast?
No, yeah, but it goes down to Los Angeles.
It doesn't go all the way down.
It does. It does. The three smaller states.
Los Angeles.
Yeah, it does. California. This will be considered the new state, which includes Los Angeles, Ventura, Santa Barbara, San Luis Obispo, Monterey, and San Benito counties. So the reason that they did that was because I think to the extent that they want to get Democrats, I don't think they could make two of the three states Republican. So if their plan here was to try to concentrate Republicans into one area, that would be Southern California. Because obviously, as you said, Northern California has got the Bay Area. That's going to be by far the largest amount of people in North California. They're Democrats. Mm-hmm. And then New California is going to be mostly L.A., so that's going to also be mostly Democratic. So the question is Southern California or South California. And I agree with you. I think that would lean Republican, but I'm not sure it would be as dark red as maybe some people fear. San Diego County is, San Diego, I believe, and Orange County both went for Hillary. Maybe I'm wrong, but I believe so.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, and then I agree with you that this is not going anywhere. I don't think this is maybe slightly more likely than California breaking off from the rest of the country, and even still, it's not very likely. I was just listening this morning to the Daily on New York Times, and we were talking about California's waiver to the Clean Air Act. About it getting dumped, and they didn't really go into much detail, but I believe the it's being challenged in the federal courts right now. Is that true?
Your guess is well. Your guess is better than mine because I am not aware of that. I know that it's been challenged before and it's never been successfully overturned. In other words, that California has the right to enact stricter regulations that do a better job of protecting the air than other states because of its long history, of course, of smog and pollution, air pollution, that is. But as far as I know, well, let me say it this way. I'm not aware of what you're discussing, but that is a very worrisome trend because, of course, California has been a leader, and the polluters don't like that. It's harder, if California passes laws that you say you have to keep your emission of pollutants below a certain level, that it's such a huge state that a lot of automakers and other manufacturers of heavy machinery and the like have to have a choice to either make a dirtier model for the rest of the country and a cleaner one for California, or have the cleaner model for the whole country. And they often go with the latter because it's just not worth it to have two different models. But they don't like that because it's more expensive, and they have to, do more to keep them within the regulations in California, and also they're more expensive to operate because you generally. Well, I don't know that they're necessarily. You think in the end they'd probably be less expensive, right? Because they use less energy. Unclear. In any event, John, the point is that I don't know. I don't know. It hasn't been successful yet to overturn the regulations that exempt California from the Clean Air Act when it goes beyond the Clean Air Act.
Yeah, I guess their nightmare scenario is that we make things even more strict, and then they're rolling off two vastly different cars off their production lines. We're 30% of the national market for car sales here, and they were discussing how if this happens, California might start pushing for a lot of public transit in major cities. Like Los Angeles doesn't have a subway system, but Elon Musk has now, as a company based down there in Los Angeles, that can bore holes through the ground. They don't even have to, dig anything up anymore to do that. They can, that's something they can make happen. It would be very costly, but I could see that happening.
So they don't have to do the old cut and cover. They don't have to take those those shovels and just rip holes in the ground and then cover them up. Instead, it's like a mole, right? The mole goes down in one hole, and then it emerges, a mile away at the next station. So that's what you're saying. That's amazing technology. I hope that they implement it. One thing that concerns me is Uber, Lyft, apparently, and I think I talked about this a couple weeks ago, they're subsidizing fares to the point where people just don't take public transportation anymore because it's cheaper to take an Uber or Lyft. Now, they lose money, but their goal is to destroy public transportation. I don't think that's going to happen, by the way.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen either because they'll just subsidize it. I don't think that Uber can get into a price war with government. I just think that they're going to bankrupt themselves.
I'm with you. The money will run out because if you can't make money after a certain point, you can't keep operating.
Yeah, that seems like a really dumb move. I mean, maybe in some areas they might be able to, they might be able to do away with certain forms of public transportation, but it can always bounce right back.
Exactly.
It's just, yeah. Well, I was, I got to read up a little more on what's going on with the Clean Air Act. I was just, for anybody who has, I listened to the Daily before I listened to your show, and it's great because it's free. And the New York Times is basically, they have a new topic every day. It's the topic du jour, and that I guess is the biggest topic in the news or whatever. And it's like a little 20-minute podcast. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I see that now. And you don't have to subscribe to the New York Times, right? It says subscribe for free. Pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, I have one more question for you, John, and let me just do this now. I got this little gimmick I use where I can actually show you what I'm looking at. I hope this is going to show the right article, but I'm looking here. Yeah, poll of the week. This is from our friends at 538.com, poll of the week. And even though we see the latest numbers suggest that the gap, the Democratic advantage on the generic poll for Congress is actually narrowing. I think that's partly because of the attack on Syria. There may be some other reasons too. I'm not aware of them. I think the Republican tax cut is less disliked right now than it was previously, as people are getting back their refunds from the federal government and from the states. All that said, I think what 538's point is, although they don't make it as explicitly as I would, is that you have to start looking at individual races. The generic ballot is all well and good, 2 years out, 1 year out, but right now we've got candidates. We know pretty well who's running in different races. We know which incumbents are stepping down, and they make the point at 538 anyway that things are really looking better for Democrats in the Senate. I don't know if you read that. I think there's some very good points that are made. I think that's something we should be happy about. Arizona could actually look at a double switch from 2 Republicans to 2 Democrats if something happens to McCain. Tennessee is now a toss-up, I believe, even though it's, I guess, leaning Republican. But the Democrat has a big lead, and he is a former governor, the Democrat Phil Breedston, over a pretty hard right Republican crank, Marsha Blackburn, who admittedly is in Congress. Even Texas isn't completely now out of the running for Democrats. So that's got to be good. You got to be happy about that, John.
Yeah, isn't Claire McCaskill doing okay in her polls too? She's Missouri, right?
Yeah, but I think she's behind, actually, and I'll look that up. And
Are you sure about that?
Well, I don't know. That's what I heard. That's what I heard on Press's show. But anyway, I shouldn't flip around too much. But yeah, I'm going back poll of the week. So the question is, and I'll look that up, but
I'm looking it up right now.
Yeah, and we'll go back to my head there.
Yeah, I'm looking that up right now. I believe the last I checked is see, I've not seen the generic. When you go to Real Clear Politics, I'm not seeing the generic poll sliding. It's always been going up and down. Yeah, McCaskill in the last poll, which was released a few days ago, she's got a 1-point lead over her opponent, Hawley, and the polling outfit was Mason-Dixon. So I don't know how credible they are, but. You know, the last, I think April 11th was the last time 4 different polling outfits released the generic ballot. And Quinnipiac came in the lowest at Democrats +3, but Reuters came in at Democrats +10. Economist YouGov came in at Democrats +8, and Rasmussen, which always skews in favor of Republicans, came in Democrats +5. So I don't know that that's really a major move.
Well, I'm putting this up on the screen for viewers if they want to see it, and you definitely can see that it's narrowed somewhat since March. I mean, the Republicans have shown a pretty decent rise, although it does bounce around, and the Democrats are well down from their high water mark. So. It's not as good as it was. I'll just say it that way.
Yeah.
If you look at the screen, you can see that. I don't know if you can see it on yours right now, but I put it up there.
And this is pretty significant too. I'm seeing Bredesen from Tennessee. He's in the last poll he polled it being 10 points stronger than the Republican.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I pronounce it Breedston, but maybe it is Bredesen. I don't know. I thought it was Breedston for some reason. Either way, yes, 538 makes the point. Yeah, Breedston. Yeah, I said.
I think that they pronounce it Breedston maybe because he does, but he's pronouncing it wrong.
Well, I was definitely, because I put an extra D in there calling it Breedston, but there's only one D, so it's either Bredesen or Breedston. So yeah. One or the other. The point is that the Democrats are in pretty good shape right now. I hope they don't blow it. we got to win. We got to get this. And they've got it. What they got to do if they get this is they got to pick the right battles. And the right battles, to my way of thinking, John, are the courts and economic issues that favor the rich and Wall Street. That's where they've got to fight tooth and nail against Apprentice. I fear they won't always do that, but that's how they can really set themselves up well to win in 2020, in my view, the White House.
Yeah, I think that they need to. I think the Democrats are pretty much known for talking more about climate change than anything else. Pretty much climate change and women's rights, and they still need to talk about that. But I think that what should be their primary focus when they're campaigning is economic empowerment of everyone. Talk about things that everyone is concerned about, and because not everyone is really believes that climate change is an issue, or believes that women's rights are sliding away slowly. But I think everyone pretty much agrees that we're losing. Our wealth disparity is on the rise, and our political power is in decline as a result. And so I think that needs to be their focus. And
I'm with you. I think economic justice is the issue that can really unite the poor, working, middle class in this country. It's just so obvious to everybody how much wealth has been siphoned off by the 1%, and even more than that, the 0.1%. So I'm with you. Climate change is global warming. I think is an important issue, and I also think it can be a winning issue for Democrats. But they have to persuade working class voters that their support for climate change legislation is actually part of their support for the working class. They've got to say, hey, we support protecting the environment because we support you. And some of the ways that we'll protect the environment are going to clearly be in your best interest. For example, no more of these trade deals, which are very harmful to the environment. And by getting rid of the trade deals, we'll be bringing jobs back home. So I think that's how you can, unite, you can fuse issues that might or might not sometimes be divisive.
Absolutely.
All right, John, listen, let me let you go, buddy. Thanks for the call. Great call. Great post, too, by the way. I want to thank John for the post about the 3 Californias. And I just want to show you that map real quick because I talked about it, but it's very interesting, I think. And so here we go. Let's see if we can get that up there. So you see the 3 Californias. This is from CNN. And you have California. This is today the largest population, number 9 per capita. I don't know what that means. What does that mean per capita? I guess that means per mile. But I wouldn't think Northern California, oh yeah, I see. So North California, it says is number 2 per capita. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me because it's such a big area. California new is 8 in population, 12 per capita. Well, that's very strange because it's obviously going to be more densely populated. And then you have South California, 4. I don't know what that means per capita. What does that mean per capita? I'm going to scroll down a little bit. Sorry to irritate you, but let's see what that means. I don't know. Who even cares? I don't know what they mean by per capita. I don't think these 3 Californias, North, New, and South, would necessarily be more conservative in the aggregate than California. In other words, the percent. Look, if you got 4 Democratic senators out of this and 2 Republican senators, that would not change the voting in the U.S. Senate at all. You just would still have a net of 2+ Democrats for all of California. But the way I look at that map, you'd get 4 Democratic senators for sure from North California and New California. And South California, I think it's kind of a toss-up. So I think you're going to get 5 and 1 on average, and that would mean a net gain of let's see, 5 and 1, 2 more Democratic senators than you would have otherwise, right? Because 5 minus 1 is 4 versus 2. You'd have 4 Democratic senators net versus 2 Democratic senators net. To me, that would be a a win for Democrats, and the total of the three would mean you'd have 4 extra electoral votes as well. So I don't think this is something to be too concerned about from a political standpoint if you're on the left side of the aisle. That said, I don't think it'll happen, as John was saying. All right, 240-283-7262, 240-283. Man, what does that mean per Oh, okay. So I figured it out. Or I didn't figure it out. I just looked here. We'll show you one more time. What does that mean per capita? Per capita is the income. So the richest of the three would be North California, because I guess the Bay Area, including Silicon Valley, has such a high income base. It would be the second highest per capita in terms of income. And I don't know what would be number one, Maryland maybe. And then, because it's not New York State, people think, well, New York, Wall Street, but New York has a lot of areas that aren't very wealthy once you get out of the New York City metropolitan area. So maybe Maryland's the richest state. I don't know. The number, New California would be 12, with Los Angeles not as rich as the Los Angeles region, not as wealthy as the Bay Area, and then finally South California, the 30th highest. It would be poorer than average. All right, 240-283-7262, 240-283-7262. Let me get to the Comey. So this is James Comey. We'll see if we can play this. This is going to be the ABC TV interview. Now, he was on, was he not? I thought he was on 60 Minutes, but this is ABC with Stephanopoulos. So how weird is that? Wasn't he on 60 Minutes? But it was posted. He must not have been. It must have been an ABC interview. For some reason, I thought it was 60 Minutes. So let me get that for you. So here we go. This is going to be from ABC, and I'm linking to the interview from The Guardian. So here is James Comey. And I think this is important. I don't necessarily agree. Well, I agree with Comey. I'll play this for you. Here we go.
Unethical, untethered to the truth. Is Donald Trump unfit to be president?
Look, they don't want to let me see this.
Yes.
They don't want to let me show
But
this.
not in the way I often hear people talk about it. I don't buy this stuff about him being mentally incompetent or early stages of dementia. He strikes me as a person of above average intelligence who's tracking conversations and knows what's going on. I don't think he's medically unfit to be president. I think he's morally unfit to be president.
All right, so there's that clip. That's Stephanopoulos and Comey, and that was from last night. And what Stephanopoulos asked him, is he fit to be president? And what Comey says is, no, but it's not because he's stupid, right? That's Comey says, it's not because he's not intelligent. It's because he's morally unfit. Now, do I agree with that? I do, but but so what? So what if he's more? I mean, there's lots of people who've been morally unfit to be president. I mean, that's nothing new. Obviously, Richard Nixon, he was a moral character. I think if you look at Bill Clinton's history, he hasn't shown really. I don't mean to be like bashing on Bill. I don't. I just don't think you see a guy who's really that concerned with, other people's feelings. He seems like a real cynical type of con artist. And you could make, I don't think I'd say that about Hillary. She's not very good at it if she is a con artist. But when has she shown real concern for other people rather than for herself? So I think you see this in a lot of politicians. Politicians are often sociopathic. Do I think Apprentice is a sociopath? Without question. I don't think there's any doubt. But, all right, he's a sociopath. The question you have to ask yourself when you vote is who's going to be best for the country. I think generally sociopath isn't. I think generally we want people who care for others. I think we generally want people who are, empathic. But the question has got to be, what will they do for me? What will they do for our nation? Let's hope in 2020 the Democrats nominate somebody who has a history of fighting for you, of fighting for working people, poor people, struggling people, racial minorities, people of color, women, people who are sexually different, all of the environment. We didn't nominate the Democrats. You did not nominate such a person in 2016, and that is why ultimately we lost. because there were two bad choices. And one of those two bad choices pandered to the worst instincts of many white working class Americans. And that candidate won when the other candidate didn't really give those voters a reason to support her. And that's what happened. And that has to change for Democrats to be, to win. That has to change for, if Democrats are going to win. That's the only way we will win. All right, 240-283-7262 if you want to join me. 240-283-7262 if you want to join me. And I'd really like to talk to you about this. The New York Times, I'd like to say, I like often Charles Blow. He doesn't quite get it. He doesn't. Now, he writes about Comey, and he talks about why he doesn't like Comey, but he really fears, and I think he says, does he say it? He may say he hates Trump. He doesn't like Comey. So let's see if we can get that for you. And by the way, is it NYT.com or do you have to write NY Times? There was a guy who used to work at the New York Times who said, hey, I wanted NYT.com. And they own NYT.com. It it relinks to, or it connects to, it redirects to. NYT.com does redirect to NewYorkTimes.com. But it is not their official URL. I guess they could change that. According to, let's see if we can find this. I want to get that analysis or what Blow says, because, and this is just what frustrates. I honestly, for me as a hardcore progressive, this is the stuff that just drives me crazy, because we still see Democrats don't get it. So here's the headline: dislike Comey, despise Trump. And this is by Charles Blow. And Blow, and what really frustrated me more than any other aspect of this article by the opinion columnist, that's what they, look, and I'll even show you that. That's pretty interesting, huh? It says it right there. Opinion column. It's sort of like you need to say opinion. We know what you are. It's but I guess they could just say opinion above. Let's see. Do they say that at the top? Yeah, it says opinion. But I guess you want to know he's an opinion columnist. So dislike Comey, despise Trump. So what I found most frustrating, let me tell you what I found most frustrating in this article by Blow, who I often actually have, I think he's extremely bright. He's a good writer. He and I share a political affinity. But what I find very, very frustrating is his diagnosis of what happened. And let me show you that as well. Let's see if we can get that on screen. He says, that means Comey, he says that the letter he released, so that's the letter where he talks about, where Comey talks about and I'm just going to try to make this a little bigger so you can see it. So that's the letter that involved the Weiner laptop, right? Huma Abedin's husband, Huma Abedin, one of Hillary Clinton's closest advisors, a trusted friend and ally since the 1990s. Huma Abedin was married to, until very recently, Anthony Weiner, famous for his sexting of his unit. He liked to share it online. So she finally divorced him, but while they were still married, she apparently would check her email sometimes on his laptop, or maybe he just checked them, who knows, whatever. So he had some emails from Hillary that she had sent from her Secretary of State account to Huma, and then Comey's FBI investigator sees that laptop at some point in the fall prior to the election in 2016, and he sent a letter to Congress, which was immediately shared with the media, saying, hey, we're looking into the emails on Weiner's laptop to see if there was anything that violated federal law. In other words, that Hillary had violated federal law by having it on her private email server, the homebrewed server that she kept in her basement in Pound Ridge or wherever she lived, somewhere in Westchester County. That probably did actually cost Hillary the election. That letter alone probably decided the election. If he hadn't sent that letter, She was ahead in the polls. She had about a 4, 5, 6 point lead in the aggregate, in the average polls. That's where she was. That would have been enough. She probably would have won the election in the popular vote by 3%. She ultimately won it by about 1.2, 1.3%. Winning by 3% would have been enough for her to keep Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. She would have been the president. So people who were big Hillary Clinton supporters are rightly, understandably incensed at Comey. And, I think we all have reason to be pissed off. I am. I don't like it. I don't think he should have sent that letter. I think that letter was overtly political. It was politicizing an investigation, and ultimately there was nothing on. There was no new news. There was no news that could be gleaned from that laptop. But hey, it reminded us all. It reminded us all that Clinton had violated federal regulations by failing to maintain her emails on her at her Secretary of State government computer on the servers that the U.S. government owned. That was a federal regulation violation. The federal regulation most absolutely clearly required her to maintain and preserve her emails at the State Department. She did not do that. She broke the rules. She never admitted it. She constantly evaded acknowledging this fact. She was always in denial. And both of those factors are major reasons she lost. It also played into the narrative that she's dishonest, that she's secretive, that she's not somebody that we can trust. So it's all true that Comey's letter cost her the election, but it was also Hillary. It was her actions that also cost her the election. So does Charles Blow admit this? Does Charles Blow, who ultimately endorsed Hillary over Bernie, does he acknowledge this? Does he say, yeah, Comey doesn't come across great, and Comey politicized, and Comey should fall on his own sword and be honest about it? But at the same time, I, Charles Blow, owe you an apology too. The New York Times, the venerable institution that I toil for, the old gray lady, also owes you an apology for having endorsed Hillary in the primaries over Bernie and helping Apprentice become president. My esteemed colleague, the Nobel Prize winner in economics, Paul Krugman, owes you a huge apology for falsely claiming that Bernie's solutions to our problems are pie in the sky, when in fact Bernie's calls for tariffs are actually consistent with what Krugman has called for in the past, when Bernie's call for single-payer universal health coverage is exactly the right solution for our healthcare issues. That's what Charles Blow should be saying. Charles Blow should be saying, if we're going to win in 2020, we need to elect somebody who's truly honest, who comes clean with the American public. Nobody's ever always honest, but who has a history of telling you the truth, of not using government for her own aggrandizement. And we've got to learn from the terrible mistake the Democratic Party made, the Democratic primary voters made by nominating Hillary. That is what Charles Blow, if he did say, would generate an enormous amount of goodwill. What does he say? There were many factors that played into the 2016 result. You can see right there. True. Russian interference. Yeah. See, I want to pull my hair out. I would love to kill myself. That's the first reason he gives. Cambridge Analytica. So those were the people that, got information from Facebook and the exploitation of social media. It's so absurd. It's none of those things. It's none of those things. That had nothing to do with this. A few hackers, people post on Facebook all the time. The analysis has shown, if you look at the numbers, yes, the Comey letter changed the trajectory of the race from narrowly favoring Hillary to a dead heat, which she lost. That's true. We can't change that fact. But if you look at the actual fact, the policy, why did people didn't like the emails. People said we can't trust Hillary. So that all is consistent with the Comey letters. But what were the policies that people said? Well, she's pro-war. We're losing our kids, our sons and daughters are getting killed in the Middle East. And since 2002, Hillary Clinton has supported the wars, war after war, whether it was Iraq, whether it was Libya, whether it was ongoing occupation. She has been a warmonger. And we are losing our... Look up the University of Minnesota study. It said that was a major factor. And what was the other factor that analyses over and over have stated helped Trump win those 3 deciding states? Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. What was the factor? Jobs, trade. That's all he friggin' talked about on the stump, pretty much. When he went to those states over and over, trade deals, trade deals, trade deals. Hillary couldn't be bothered. No one trusted her when she said, oh, I never called the TPP the gold standard. Well, she did call it that. Where are those issues? He doesn't bring them up. Why doesn't Charles Blow bring them up? Because he's part of the problem. He's part of the neo-lib. I hate to say it. I like the New York Times. It's a great newspaper. They tell you what's going on in the world. The Washington Post tells you what's going on in the world. But to a lesser degree, to a lesser extent than the Post, but still, the New York Times is complicit. The New York Times has simply failed to tell you how badly the trade deals have destroyed our country. It has failed to tell you how badly the wars have destroyed our soul. And they have also cost the Democratic Party its ascendancy. It's not just the trade deals. It's the corruption, the rot in the Democratic Party, the millions and millions of dollars from Wall Street that have enriched the Clintons, not just the Clintons, Howard Dean, Dick Gephardt. The money that Kamala Harris, the new superstar, took from Steve Mnuchin not to prosecute him for the SunWest? Bank of the West, what was it? Cal West? I don't remember. Maybe Bank of the West? That's why the Democratic Party is in the doldrums, or has been. Cory Booker's money from Goldman Sachs, his vote against importing drugs from Canada. Americans get how bad this is. That's why Democrats are losing. And the first 3 reasons have nothing to do with that Charles Blow gives you. Russian interference, the work of Cambridge Analytica, and the exploitation of social media. What else? The Clinton campaign's miscalculations, yes, that is true. I'll give you that. The actual content of Podesta's email, that's true. We all saw how, what's the word I'm looking for? How self-interested, how self-serving, how manipulative the Clinton campaign attempted to be. Voter suppression, I think that had an effect, no question. False impressions given by the polls that Clinton was sure to win. I think those are all true. But then what again? Racism, xenophobia, misogyny, and ethno and religious hostility. I think those played a role. I'm not denying it. Disguised as economic anxiety. There is real economic anxiety, Charles Blow, and that is incredibly condescending. That's the deplorables argument. That's why we lose. You missed the 2 biggest reasons. They're really the 3 biggest reasons Hillary lost. The 3 biggest reasons. People didn't trust her. She's not trustworthy. That's reason 1. She's not trustworthy. She is not for economic justice and never has been. And she's been for war. That's why she lost. Okay? That is, and this, I want to kill myself. I don't really want to. I find it unbelievably frustrating that this crap is in the New York Times. This nonsense, this BS, this blame the victim argument by Charles Blow. All right, that's going to do it for me. It's not quite 10. That's all right. You have a great day. I'll be back tomorrow.